I know that the companies you've been a part of, Facebook, LinkedIn, both of them are and others, but Facebook and LinkedIn namely are extremely good at building great cultures. And you just talked about, values-driven thought processes and statements, as well as purpose-driven thought processes and statements. You've mentioned that a couple of times in our conversation. For you, how do you think about building culture, and how do you think about purpose and values driving that? Like, what's your thought process behind that, and how should these companies that are listening think about building great cultures themselves? What type of advice could you give to them?
Yeah, definitely. So I think firstly, like, always bring a startup mindset to the company you work for, regardless of the size. Because like what I learned in all these different types of roles and what have you is the hustle or kind of rolling the sleeves up gives you the approach, even working for such a big brand like LinkedIn or Facebook. If you come with the startup mindset, then you can build the culture from scratch, and you're accountable, and you own part of this company. Like, you are a shareholder in the company. So when you walk through the door, you own a piece of the success that it has and the lack of success that it has. So it's not all the upside, right?
Right.
So
definitionally accountability. That's good.
Yeah, exactly. So, bring the startup mindset to any company. The second aspect I would say is build a diverse team. Now, Facebook's the first company I've worked for that actually brings a diverse team and hires a diverse team that is so different from the next person you sit with. I've worked for so many other companies, particularly in sales, that the recruiting manager will say, we just want 10 more of that person, sorry. We need 10 more Mikes because, Mike is great. And then we need, 15 more Sallys because, she's the best salesperson we've ever had. Now, that's great, but you're going to have so many of the same extroverted salespeople. No one's going to think differently. Now, if you're running a machine and you're just having a sales, cog engine, like, you're going to be running well. Don't get me wrong. You're going to get a successful sales business. But when it comes to thinking differently and being disrupted and doing, things out of the norm and breaking into new business ventures, you need a different mindset to be able to grow those muscles. So hire different people from different cultures, different ethnicities, from different backgrounds. Challenge yourself in the way that you think to hire different types of talent. That would be my second tip. And then the third tip is around the thing I've touched on probably the most, and that's around purpose. Really get to understand your team, really get to understand your leadership in what is their purpose in life, and not in like a deep yogi-ful like way or like deep meditation crazy way, like too fluffy. But I really mean that in the sense of like, why do people jump out of bed today and come to work? And then understand who connects to that purpose. Now, if there's people in your business or you're building a business and they don't connect to your purpose or your mission of your company, then it's probably a short-filled career. Particularly if you're in the startup business. If you're in a bigger, larger business, then it craves the way for less of a purpose-driven culture for some. But I fundamentally think that's been a huge factor for me. And then aligning to that passion and that drive and the ongoing, opportunity to create a greater path for me in many different directions beyond my skill set. And the ability, as you asked the question earlier, how do you jump from a service business to a product business? I think that leap can continue to happen tenfold into so many different realms, because if you're focused on the purpose and you're focused on the key fundamentals that you believe in, it doesn't matter what you actually do in business, unless you're a doctor or a lawyer, where you actually need fundamental qualifications. Let's preface it with that. I'm not going into heart surgery anytime soon, put it that way.
Then I will gladly go into the scalpel with you. So that's great. And what have you noticed? What are the common themes at Facebook, at LinkedIn? Those companies do a lot of things really well. What are the common themes you've learned from building cultures that leaders are doing? Not necessarily just the framework you mentioned, because that was gold, what you just mentioned, and people need to think about that. But how do leaders plug into that? And what is their role? What do they need to make sure that they do really well, that you've seen leaders at Facebook and LinkedIn do really well commonly across those two companies?
Yeah, so I think every company has a mission, right? Like a public statement mission. I think everyone aligns to that. It joins the company, right? I think that's general hiring principle. Mm-hmm. Leaders of business, I think what I've seen them do very well is, as a team, define your values or your behaviors. Now, values and behaviors aren't, so the values of the company will be up on the wall and what have you, and that's what you show up to every day. But it's really actually more the behaviors. So as a team, how are we going to contribute as a business to achieve the values and the mission of the company? Now, once there's alignment on that and everyone's on the same page, it's like a football team going to win the Super Bowl, right? Like, you need to train the same way an athlete does in order to hit high performance. And so I've been reading a book recently, actually, from one of the coaches from the All Blacks in New Zealand. Amazing book called Legacy, in fact. And so what they talk about a lot, and this has really resonated with me, is the training that they would do before showing up to the game was so intense and so out of their comfort zone and so hard that when they got to the game would just be the transaction. Like, there was no losing. Think about it in the same way as business, right? Like, if you're focused on nailing a meeting or nailing a presentation or what have you, do the prep work and do the hard work prior, so that when you walk onto stage or when you walk into that meeting, that it's just a transaction that you're already expecting and you're prepared. So I think that's key. And then, going back to kind of the actual way in which I think is important that people I've worked with do business, I think vulnerability is really important, open and transparency. No surprises is key. Like, in a business, any surprises that you give your team or your managers is probably a negative thing, unless it's a birthday surprise. But I think it's super important to align on like open transparency, vulnerability, and really showing that you care and you have empathy with other colleagues. There's certainly not enough empathy in business. And I think the danger of leadership without empathy is a negative culture. And I think that's sort of a key thing. I've been fortunate to work with companies and teams that carry empathy and compassionate leadership. So I think that's truly important, and leading with that will set them up for success for sure.